Hello, welcome to Stephen Speak, episode number 2 of Series 3. Thank you very much for joining me. Today's episode is going to be about a subject that I wasn't even considering doing, because, obviously, I'd actually prepared a little bit and wrote a few subjects down, and I'm not even doing them. But I've got them in the back pocket for later, so today's episode is going to be about something that's kind of struck home with me in the last couple of days while doing a task for someone, and also throughout the week for the way my brain works and how much pressure I put on myself. So it's really about undertaking a task or project or life decision and kind of not taking it too seriously and just giving it a go and not worrying about the consequences, and not necessarily consequences, but whether it turns out how you predict. Hopefully all will become clear in the episode. So yeah, let's get into it. Welcome to Stephen Speak, the podcast. Unscripted prattle on everything and nothing. Yes, I don't want to explain that very well in the intro, but basically what I'm trying to get at, the episode will be about maybe wanting to undergo start a project, but are worried about the expectations you have on it and how difficult it would be, and your maybe perception of how well you'll be able to do it, and having an intended target of perfection. And I definitely suffer from this. My wife would definitely say that I do, to the detriment of some of the stuff that's needing doing around the house, to be honest. And it's really difficult probably to describe to someone, so I'll do my best today. Maybe you'll sympathize, empathize. Maybe I'll describe what you feel. But in pretty much day-to-day tasks, not just projects or major undertakings in life, but even at the small level, I can find it really difficult to enact something that I need to do. I'd say it gets me anxious, and it probably does get me anxious to a degree, but it's normally a worry and a fear of failure. So anything I undergo, I really put a lot of pressure on myself to do the best I can do, while not wanting to fail completely. And it's a lot of juxtaposition, and it's a lot of it's kind of a paradox as well, how I feel and how my brain works. I am and quite have always really been quite a polar opposites kind of person. So I can go from being really blasé about something and planning everything at the last minute to planning every single detail, but my outcome is still the aim of perfection. But sometimes I set myself up for a fall, and other times I set myself up for a fall by planning too much. So my expectation of myself is quite high. I think I would hope most people would say they get good work from me, or good results, but it's never normally enough for me. I strive for that ultimate perfection, and it's hard to achieve sometimes. If ever, if I'm honest with you, if ever, I could probably create the best thing in one area that anyone has ever done, or and get loads of praise for it, but I'd probably find some way to critique it. And I think probably what most people do, especially creative people, and I don't know. I feel like I've got a bit of imposter syndrome. I don't really want to label myself as things, but I do very much feel all the time that even if I'm skilled in some way, that I feel like I'm not, or if I have a knowledge of something, I kind of doubt it and think someone's going to catch me out. But in regards to completing tasks, I just strive for that ultimate perfection. While understanding I might not be able to achieve it, it still really, really riles me up that I can't. So it's a strange dynamic in my head of how to balance that. So for example, a really simple task could be paint a door frame. There's several tasks in our house at the moment, like this task. Now, the way my brain kind of reacts to that is that's a simple task, so I can do that with relative ease. Yeah, there's some niggles about it. I know how I am. Sometimes I'll start it off really neat, and then I might get a bit slapdash towards the end. But I start breaking a task down, which I'm really good at. I'm really good at like kind of really getting to the crux of things. So I'll think about, right, that door frame needs painting. So I'll be like, right, does it need prepared? Does it need sanding down? Blah, blah, blah. So that for me is like a separate task. So I would probably wouldn't sand it down, prepare it, and paint it all in one go. That would maybe be spread over like a couple of days or maybe even a couple of weekends. And that might be like what you could just do all like one day. But I know that I have to swap what I'm doing quite frequently. So if I'm stuck into one task, um, I sometimes get bored. Other times I don't. Sometimes I fall down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I then get stuck and fixated on that task, and then it takes an exorbitant amount of time. So I have to be careful when I'm planning stuff. So something as simple, it seems simple to me even sometimes, is like painting a door frame. I will then break it down and go, well, I've got to prepare it, I've got to do this, got to do that. Maybe, undercoat it, and that'll take time. So maybe the preparation, the undercoat, and the top coat will be completely day tasks. But then another part of my brain goes, yes, but you can complete this task. Painting's relatively easy as long as you don't get frustrated and start slopping the paint everywhere. So then it kind of recategorized it as like a not important task because it's easy. So, that's a task that can be done anytime because it's quite small. So each of them tasks are quite small. Then I'll never start any of them, or they'll just be put on the back burner. And I'm sure that's really, really frustrating for my wife, to be honest. But that's how my brain works. And then to the extreme side, a very difficult task. So say like, I don't know, something I've maybe never done before. Like I'm meant to be creating some wardrobes for her, and have been since we moved in this house 5 years ago. But that's more of a difficult task that I've never really done before, which involves me using woodworking skills, which I know I can do. Putting shelves up, maybe buying some, pre-made stuff and installing it and retrofitting other things to it and making it a bit bespoke. Now, separately, all them things are quite achievable for me, I think. But when you put it together as one project, it then becomes a bit more of a task for me. So then it kind of like goes out of control in my brain, where I say, well, that's so much of a task now that I'm gonna have to take a week off work, or that might be done over like several weekends, which it can't be because the bedroom would be in such a mess while I was trying to do it. So I then break it down again, but then it becomes a simpler task because I've broke it all down into separate phases. So then it becomes less important, put to the side. And it doesn't. When I say less important, I know it's important for Sarah, but it's just how my brain like categorizes things. That then can be done at any point. So any of them tasks involved in making the wardrobe can be done at any point, but then they never get done. And saying it out loud makes me realize that I've done this all my life. And I've always strived for perfection. I've always been a person as well, especially younger days when probably you've got more time on your hands. Maybe you are a little bit more confident in yourself as well. But I was very much like, especially at school, like if someone said, "Oh, right, does anyone want to do this?" Like I'd analyze the situation and gather as much information as I could, and be like, you know what, I probably can do that first time. I would aim for perfection. Probably not achieve. Well, I wouldn't achieve it. Let's face it. But I would achieve like a middle road kind of. I've got the job done. It's functional. Such things, etc., etc. And I kind of another part of my brain accepts that. It's honestly really bizarre. I hope this is making somewhat amount of sense. So kind of my brain is prepared for failure but doesn't want to accept it when it happens, and I'm very hard on myself. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I understand my limitations, strive for perfection, but then when I don't reach that expectation, I'm hard on myself. It's a strange feeling, and it's stressful, to be honest. It's difficult to overcome, and I go through stages of I think I like striking while the iron's hot. So I might do a task in the house, and that'll drive me to do the next one because it's an achievement and it makes you feel good. You get like a, I suppose it's like a dopamine fix, really. You kind of get like a boost of confidence from it. So if I go and fit a shelf and it doesn't take too long and it's not too hard, and I've managed to drill the holes first time because we live in an older house and sometimes you hit points in the wall that you can't drill through and stuff like crazy. Um, but yeah, sometimes I'll move on and I'll do a few jobs at the same time, but then that might be all that happens for a while. And I'm not very good at taking hints as well from my wife. Like she'll say something all that needs doing, and I just go yes because I know it's on my list. Like, and that's good enough for me. No, it will get done, but I can't give you a time frame. Again, that must be super annoying. Um, so I do carry some sympathy. And we've been speaking about this recently about needing to do some tasks around the house and actually get some stuff done. And I think the thing is because we've been living it for a while now, it kind of seems like the norm as well. Um, but it is something I really need to work on. And that goes through to work as well. I can. I'm nowhere near as bad as I used to be, but when I became a manager, like I'd sometimes spend like half an hour replying to someone on an email just because I wanted to get the wording right, didn't want to come across badly, um, and wanted to get the right content in there. I'm a lot better. You hone your skills, don't you? You get better at doing things. Oh, excuse me, I just had a massive yawn. I'm sorry. Um, it's the cake sleeps. I've just had a slice of cake. Um, I think it's made me want to have an afternoon nap. Yeah. So I kind of am a weird paradox that there's a weird paradox that I live through with the way my task management. Really can't manage things in that way, and it can be quite disruptive to be honest. Um, and I very much like to do the things I like to do in regard to I kind of live in the moment quite a lot. So if I'm in a mood to drill some holes, I have to literally strike that straight away. But the process of maybe getting the tools out might stop that. So that's quite obstructive as well. Basically, I can't win. Um, I am making small steps to do the wardrobes. So I've made a little plan. I've measured them, and my next stop is actually like today and this week is to actually buy the stuff to do it. And then hopefully next weekend I'll make a start and try and actually get some stuff done. Um, but I do feel bad, and when Sarah brings it up and says like, "Oh, we still need to do this," can you do it for me? Like, it does make me feel bad because it does upset her. Like, she's been wanting these things completed, um, and it isn't stuff. Most of it isn't stuff out of my realm of ability. But it's because I'm striving for that perfection, or maybe it's the first time I've done something. Um, it scares me a little bit to fail on it, and that's the biggest thing. It's the fear of failure, and even though I failed quite a few times in my life, it I understand that it's kind of a necessity in some ways, but this little part of my brain that is like, you've got the capability to do it perfectly first time, niggles at me. And even though this nice side of my brain says it's fine that it's not perfect, it won't be perfect. When this podcast is kind of like um, that in a nutshell is the fact that when I went into this, I didn't want to do loads of planning. I didn't want to fall down that rabbit hole. I wanted it to be a bit rough around the edges because that is me. And yeah, I didn't want to get into that whole overproduction, to be honest, because I think that would delay the process. It would make me think I can't do this anymore. What if I make a mistake during the process, editing? I would strive for that perfection, and then I would get nowhere. So for me to accept the fact that I talk into this microphone for 20 minutes or whatever, and whatever I say is said with no going back to edit it or make it sound better and improve it is kind of good for me. But that's how I've set out in the outset. But when I do other things, it's very difficult to me accept that default position. Um, really bizarre, isn't it? I don't know whether that's a condition, whether that's just an unsurmountable target that I've set myself. But it's really bizarre because as I say, like when I start a job, I understand that it's not going to be perfection, but I still strive for it and I still get disappointed when it's not. Um, when, for example, I recently, just this weekend, made a cake for a friend's birthday. Um, they couldn't find anyone to make a cake, and I offered to do it, and they wanted it in the shape of a drum, snare drum. Basically, I chose to do the snare drum because my friend plays the drums, and it was a bit of a surprise cake for him. He knew he was getting a cake, but didn't know I was making it. Um, Now I've been baking cakes for years, on and off. I'm not a frequent baker. Like I probably go through a phase every so often of making cakes and then get out of it. So I've probably not made any cakes for over a year and a half, probably maybe 2 years. Um, I go through a phase every so often, but I can make a mean sponge cake. My mum's Irish. She taught us all the skills when we were young, so I've picked up a bit of her ability to. I think can channel that gut feeling kind of thing. But I took on the challenge, but it still panicked me to make. Well, what if the cakes don't turn out? What if this? What if that? What if that? And in my brain, I had this perfectly decorated snare drum, um, pristine icing, like no cracks in it, blah blah blah. And it didn't turn out like that. I'm not a cake maker. I'm not a cake decorator by trade. It's not my profession. I've had limited experience doing it, and the ones I've done, I've just done just because I wanted to stab at it. So I've probably two iced cakes previous to this. Made loads of little buns and stuff like that, but full iced up cakes, probably only a couple, maybe three, over the space of like 10 years, probably. So by no means an expert, but it turned out all right. It turned out kind of, while I was making it, I was really seriously thinking it was going to fail completely. So it turned out better than my expectations during the making. But prior to that, my expectation was you should be able to create a cake to a professional standard, which sounds ridiculous. But part of my brain is telling me that, and the other side's going, "Don't worry, Steve. It won't be as good as that, but it'll be fine because you'll have produced a cake which they wouldn't have had otherwise." And that's me being nice to myself. But I very rarely listen to the second voice. It's normally the first voice saying you need perfection. And I'm getting better at not listening to that second voice. I'm getting better at saying, you know what, I understand. I'm not going to reach perfection. I'll still strive for it. I'll still try and be the best I can be. Obviously, I'm trying to be better at accepting that failure. I think what I'm trying to say overall is don't be afraid to have a go. Um, there's like that phrase, isn't there? Day one, no, one day or day one, basically. So is it going to be one day or is this day one of it? Which is a great saying. I love that saying. Are you gonna put it off to one day where you probably never get around to doing it, or is this day one you're gonna try it? You're gonna start, doing that thing, which I think for most people will work. Um, the problem with me, every day is day one because I have a list in my head, and that's where that falls down for me. But what I'm saying is, if you've got something you need to try, just try it. Like I made that cake, never made a drum cake before, tried it, it turned out all right. It wasn't the end of the world. People enjoyed a slice of cake. It was actually quite tasty. Just eating a piece of it, as I said. Um, but yeah, just try stuff and don't be so hard on yourself. And I need to take that advice myself. Is to just like chill out and just put some stuff into action. Um, Failure is an option, as they said on MythBusters, and I think that's a kind of a good take from this episode. Really, you can fail, but at least you tried, and if you do fail, you can try again, can't you? And I need to take that into advisement. But yeah, hopefully I will get my arse into gear and actually do some of these projects that my wife so desperately needs me to do, and actually box them off, and then they won't be lingering around in my brain. I can free some capacity up for other things that I can put off for 5 years. Um, anyway, how how does your brain work? Do you put things off like that? Do you just get things done? Are you a doer? Would you just call someone up to do it? Would you have a go at making a cake out of the blue, just following a recipe online and having a go? As they say, nothing ventures, nothing gains, and you can find everything on the internet now, like help guides, etc. So, yeah. So, do you relate to how my brain works? Curious to find out. And the picture of the cake, I'll put the picture of the cake on social medias probably at some point, so you'll be able to see them. Oh, see it. I did make some cupcakes as well, to be fair. But yeah, that's all for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Check out stevenspeak.com for updates and stuff. I need to do a big update on the website, to be honest. Not keeping up with the updates, so go to stevenspeak.com for semi-updated updates. And on my social medias, at stevenspeakpc. Can't speak today. And which is quite vital for a podcast. Yes, and thank you very much for listening. And I'll speak to you soon. Take care. You've been listening to Steven Speak the podcast. Thanks for listening to my unscripted prattle on everything and nothing. Visit stevenspeak.com for updates, information, and my blog. You can follow more updates on social media at stevenspeakpc. Thanks very much, and I'll speak to you soon.